The travel graph shows Zoran's bicycle excursion from home to his friend's home and onto the stadium. Using information from the graph, calculate the distance from Zoran's home to his friend's home. Now notice that here is Zoran's starting point. And so he started the journey at 9:30. And so here, notice you have a slant line, and the slant line indicates the slant line in this direction indicates a moving forward, or the moving phase, moving forward, progressing, right? And where is he going? He's going to his friend's home, and he arrives at his friend's home, and this horizontal line indicates a resting phase, right? And so he stays at his friend's home for a while, and then the slant line in this direction indicates a movement forward. So this is the moving phase. So moving phase all the way until he arrives at his friend's home. Horizontal line indicates a resting phase. That's when he stays at his friend's home. And then he moves forward again all the way to the stadium. And so the question wants us to determine the distance from Zoran's home to his friend's home. Now notice here on the y-axis, we have the distance. And so this is 2, we're counting in twos. So this is 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. And then at his friend's home, it's 12. Now the distance is measured in kilometers. So the distance from Zoran's home to his friend's home is actually 12 kilometers. And so the answer here is 12 kilometers. Next, we have to determine, or we have to calculate the time he arrived at his friend's home. The time he arrived at his friend's home. So here, let's indicate on the graph. So here is when he arrived at his friend's home. And so we have to determine that time, okay, that time. So that this time is going to be 10:15 a.m. And the reason why it is 15 is because we're counting, in each case, we increase by 15. So this is 10, this is 10:15, this is 10:30, 10:45, 11. Same thing for this. This is 9, 9:15, 9:30, 9:45, and 10. And so that means that the time that he arrived at his friend's home is 9:15. And I'm sorry, 10:15, because we're in the 10, so it's going to be 10:15. All right, not 9:15, 10:15, because this is 10, and so the next one is 10:15. And so the time he arrived at his friend's home is 10:15 a.m. Next, it says we need to calculate the length of time he spent at his friend's home. So we know what time he arrived at his friend's home. He arrived at his friend's home at 10:15 a.m. So he arrived at his friend's home at 10:15 a.m. All right. And here we have him leaving his friend's home. So he left his friend's home at 11. So this right here is 11. All right, then this is 11:15. This is 11:30. So that means that he arrived at his friend's home at 10:15, but he left at 11:30. And so we have to subtract those two times in order for us to figure out the length of time he spent at his friend's home. So we have 11:30 minus 10:15. We say 0 minus 5. We cannot do that, so we have to borrow. And so what we have here is we have to actually borrow 1 from 3, and that becomes 2. And then this becomes 10. So we have 10 minus 5. And 10 minus 5 is definitely 5. And 2 minus 1 is definitely 1. Next, we have 1 minus 0. 1 minus 0 is 1. And 1 minus 1 is 0. So that means that the length of time he spent at his friend's house, the length of time he spent at his friend's house or his friend's home is 1 hour and 15 minutes. And that's the answer to this question. Next, we have to determine the following. Next, we have to determine the average speed for the entire journey. The average speed for the entire journey. Now, what is average speed? Well, average speed is distance divided by time. Now, what is the distance, right? The total distance. Well, this is started at Zoran's home and ends at the stadium. So this is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, right? 14, 16, 18. 18. So we arrive at the stadium, and the stadium is 18 kilometers away from his home. So the distance he had to travel was so the distance that he had to travel to get to the stadium was 18 kilometers. And so we have the distance divided by time. The distance is definitely 18 kilometers. The time is, well, we know that he started at 9:30. All right, so he started at 9:30. So we have to figure out the time. We know that he started at 9:30. That's the time he started at 9:30. And what time did he end? Well, he ended at 12 noon. And so what we have to do is we take 12 o'clock or 12 noon. We subtract that with 9:30, the starting point. So 12:30 minus 9:30, and we subtract 0 minus 0 is definitely 0 minus 0 is definitely 0. But when we do 0 minus 3, we cannot do that. And so what that means is that we have to go over here to the hour side, and we have to actually borrow a whole hour. So we have to take away a whole hour from 12, and that leaves us with 11 hours left. Now remember, we took a whole hour from the hour side, and so that means that when we bring it over to the minute side, it becomes 60 minutes, because 1 hour is equal to 60 minutes. And remember, we borrowed a whole hour, and so that means that we actually borrowed 60 minutes. 60 plus 0 is definitely 60. So here we have 60 minutes, and on the hours we have 11 hours. And next we subtract. We have 1160 minus 930. 0 minus 0 is still 0. 6 minus 3 is 3. 11 minus 9, well, what we can do is we can borrow 1 from this. We can borrow 1 from this one, and that becomes a 0. And then this becomes 11. So we have 11 minus 9. And 11 minus 9, that's 9, 10, 11 is 2. And so that means that the time taken is 2 hours and 30 minutes, or 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours. So the time 12 a.m. minus 2:30 a.m. is going to be, I'm sorry, this is not 12 a.m. This is actually 12 noon. So that's going to be 12 p.m. Okay, so 12 p.m. So what we have here is 12 p.m. minus 9:30 a.m. When we subtract them, we get 2 hours and 30 minutes. And we know that 2 hours and 30 minutes is definitely 2.5 hours. And so what we do is we say 18 kilometers divided by 2.5 hours. So we have 18 kilometers divided by 2.5 hours. Next we divide. When we divide these two, we get 7.2 kilometers per hour. And so that means that the average speed for the entire journey, the average speed is 7.2 kilometers per hour. And that's the answer to this question.